Good evening. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medieros, and we have a great episode in store for you guys tonight. And with us is a special guest, one of our loyal listeners, Graysen Mortimer. Dude, we've been trying to get you on the show for forever. Why don't you introduce yourself to some of our listeners? And
So I'm Graysen Mortimer. I'm a New England-based kid, longtime Patriots fan. Granted, I am second-team Bills, but I can explain that if you guys want. New England-based guy. I've known Adam since high school. Did track together, I'm happy to be here, guys.
Definitely, man. Welcome to the show. It's great having you on, and so we're going to be continuing our Thursday series of sort of previewing every division. Last week, well, kind of this week, it was on Sunday. We did the AFC North, which was a little dicey. It was a long episode, but we had a lot of people on, and it was all AFC North fans. We don't have any AFC South fans, but we have a great football mind here in Graysen, and we're going to talk about the AFC South today. And so this is if you could sum them up as people, they would all be just complete characters. Like everybody in this division, the Colts, the Texans, the Titans, the Jaguars, just all of them. But I wanted to get you guys' takes. What do you guys think about this division and how they're all going to stack up with each other? And we could start with CJ and then Graysen. CJ?
I think he froze.
CJ froze. All right. Do you want to start, Graysen?
I can start then. Yeah. This is a good division. It's not the NFC East, so I can actually say it'll be competitive. So I think honestly, right now, I'm really liking the Colts. I think them going out and getting a quarterback instead of Carson Wentz was an amazing decision. I think the battle for third will be real as well because, Jacksonville, I expect them to be pretty good under Doug Peterson. He's a much better coach than obviously what we saw last year. And the Texans are kind of just a wild card. We honestly have no idea how they're going to be. I think more of the news about the Texans hasn't been what they've done on the field, but I think it's been what their previous quarterback has done off of it. So, I think it'll be a really good competitive division. I think 1 and 2 are very clear of 3 and 4, but it's a division where I think anything can happen, and we'll see that this season.
All right, CJ?
So my thoughts on the AFC South, there's really no clear-cut favorite. The Colts got their newest bridge quarterback and Matt Ryan. Now, don't get me wrong, Matt Ryan's pretty good, but his age is not the long-term answer. You have guys like Michael Pittman and the great Jonathan Taylor, running back, stout defense, you'll be fine. But then there's the Titans, a team who usually you would think, would probably be gunning for that 1 seed, but Ryan Tannehill visibly took a step back last year. Derrick Henry's coming off an injury, but he's still going to be good. And then, your number 1 receiver is Robert Woods, who's going off an injury. Then you have the rookie Treylon Burks because you traded away A.J. Brown because you did not want to pay him. And the Titans' defense kind of has taken a step back, so I feel like it's really up for grabs. But then there's like the Jaguars who, their draft was okay, but good God, their free agency, they were literally paying like grossly overpaying for, middling talent. And then there's the Texans with Davis Mills. And I know there are a lot of Davis Mills apologists out there, and to which I say, you're not going to win the division. Stop it. Well, I got nothing against Davis Mills, but this feels like kind of like an anyone could win, but I'm kind of leaning toward the Colts here. Usually I say the Titans, but it feels like they all, even Indy in a way, took it. Maybe not Indy, but it feels like at least 3 of the teams took a step back.
All right. So both of you guys said So this isn't sort of anybody could take it type of division, and it is more competitive than the NFC East. I'll give you that much. However, the way I see it is it's kind of a 2-horse race here, and with the Colts being the horse that should be favored. The Colts upgraded at quarterback, they upgraded at corner, and they acquired defensive end Yannick Ngakoue. So they really just they improved on an already stacked defensive front. And then you look at the Titans. They brought in Robert Woods. They were forced to trade away AJ Brown, and then they drafted Treylon Burks as a replacement who's kind of physically he's theoretically an AJ Brown clone. So whether or not this Titans team will contend will basically fringe upon whether or not Treylon Burks can be AJ Brown. And so it comes down to those teams for me. For the other two, the Texans, they did a great job trading away Deshaun Watson. And he could be a ticking time bomb with the way things are going. In the case, he could never play football again, and they got several first-round picks for him. But they're still a young team. They have Brandon Cooks, who they nailed down, and they drafted Derek Stingley Jr., a great-looking corner. They also brought in they brought in it was either a tackle or a guard. It was one of those two, but they helped they added something to that offensive line. Davis Mills, we'll see if he can play. But the Jaguars, good Lord, that team. So what the Jaguars did was they spent a record $175 million in guaranteed money. And it's not like they spent as in like they spent on star talent. Their top wide receiver right now is Christian Kirk, who I like, but he's not worth the money that he got. And a lot of people hate that contract now. A lot of teams hate that contract because now it's set the market and now the wide receiver position has blown up financially because this mediocre, I won't say mediocre. I'll say this very solid, not worth it wide receiver got this massive deal that he didn't deserve. And then all these star wide receivers who actually deserve money, like Davante Adams said, hey, I want that money. I deserve better than what he got. And eventually he got it. And
Tyreek as
so
well.
What's that?
Tyreek as well.
Yeah, Tyreek. And the list
Cooper
goes
Kupp
on.
got paid too.
Cooper Kupp got paid. And I'm not sure if there was any doubt whether or not Cooper Kupp would have been paid. Because it looked like they were willing to, and this Rams team has not shied away from overpaying their players. What I will say is one of the lone bright spots on this team is that they did upgrade at the offensive line position. They added protection for him, which is good for Trevor Lawrence, which is good because you invested a first round pick in him. So you need to protect him. You need to make sure that he has the best looks possible and he has the best opportunities to succeed. And if it turns out that he can't play, then he can't play. But you're never going to find out if he's on his ass all the time. Their draft, severely overrated. And Devin Lloyd, I know you and I, CJ, loved Devin Lloyd coming out of this draft, and he fell, and we found out why he fell.
Yeah.
It turns out he has a big-time attitude problem, and he didn't want to play in cold weather, and it did not look good. And he was their second first-round pick. Trayvon Walker could wind up being a very good edge rusher, but the problem is the only reason his draft stock was so high was because of his combine performance. So physically, he's very gifted. We'll say that much. That much we can all agree on. But his statistics in college, he was just So I might, honestly, looking back at this offseason, I might have the Jaguars as the biggest losers. Like that, like their free agency, they spent on talent they overpaid on everybody they spent money on, and they really didn't need to pay that much money for them. And in the draft, it was just like they had 2 first-round picks, but why did you use it on those guys for? Like, I just don't like this for them. And you can see the Jaguars just being the Jaguars again.
Yeah, Adam.
For sure.
But let's put some numbers on this, shall we? Christian Kirk got a 4-year, $72 million deal. And that doesn't stop because now the only good deal I would say they handed out was to the Washington offensive lineman Brandon Scherf, who got a 3-year, $49 million deal. Bit injury prone, but well worth the money. Then Foysad Olakun from the Atlanta Falcons got the 3-year, $45 million deal. And keep in mind, he greatly benefited from, playing behind Deion Jones. And Foley Fatukasi from the New York Jets, their backup defensive tackle. Yeah, 3 years, $30 million. Zay Jones, like the 4th string receiver from Vegas, got a 3-year, $24 million deal. You got to ask why. And keep in mind, I'm not a Jaguars insider, but if I had to guess, it's like they're begging, like, please come play for us. We'll give you whatever you want. It's like a team that's so bad, they have to overpay to get anyone with a shred of talent on their roster. And yeah, and what's weird, they gave Christian Kirk 4 years, $72 million deal, right? And then you had DJ Chark, who was their best receiver.
72 or 84?
I'm on Sport Track and it says 72 million.
Oh yeah, if Spot Track says that, then
Spot Track.
That's correct. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Spot Track is accurate.
And then of course, I guess I was going to bring up, like I said, Christian Kirk, 4 years, $72 million, and they already had a number 1 receiver in DJ Chark, who personally I like a little bit better than Christian Kirk. He's faster and he's more agile and he's more explosive, and they let him walk. And DJ Chark literally signed a 1-year, $10 million deal with Detroit. So you're downgrading at receiver 1, but paying more money. Only the Jaguars.
And comparing those 2 players, like it's actually like fairly even. Like those, like
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say Chark's leaps and bounds better, but I like him a little bit better than Kirk. But they're
2
pretty
players
close.
2 players with injury issues who put up solid statistics when they're on the field, but not wide receiver 1 statistics. I thought DJ Chark was a potential number 1 guy if he could stay on the field, but number 1 he can't, and number 2, even when he has been on the field the past couple of years, he really hasn't been 100%. He hasn't been close to what he was in his rookie year. He really hasn't matched up to that.
He really didn't do much his rookie year, honestly.
Rookie year? But I'm sorry. Was that his sophomore season?
Yeah, his sophomore season.
So it was his sophomore season that was his it feels like that was his rookie year, but I mean, that's when everybody figured out who he was. And it turned out he had a great year, and he's good when he's on the field, but
I agree. And but Indy, like I said, they're probably the only team that didn't take a step back. Because, Matt Ryan, Yannick Ngakoue, Stephon Gilmore, among others. But, I don't know how to put this. Because despite that, I don't love them. They're just, outside of Jonathan Taylor, they're just not that explosive. I mean,
remember when you had...
I think, to be honest, I think that the Colts are going to be, a potential dark horse in the playoffs this year because, I mean, Pittman, very good year last year with Wentz as his quarterback. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's got Matt Ryan now, I think Pittman is going to be, pushing arguably top 10 for yards. I would not be surprised if he did because he has, an actual quarterback now. And instead of a guy who throws picks for birthday presents. And I think that, with their defense already being quite established and with their O-line, obviously led by guys like Quentin Nelson, I think that I think the Colts are going to be like probably 12-5, 13-4. And I think they'll be a team that I think other teams just aren't going to want to play. Because I think last year, if Matt Ryan is your quarterback instead of Wentz, I think you win 1 or 2 more games, especially that one at the end of the year against Jacksonville. I don't see why the Colts don't win this division. Obviously injuries are a factor, but overall, I mean, I honestly really like the Colts this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, but it's just like I know. I mean, I know Pittman technically is good numbers, but he's not a highlight reel guy. He's not explosive. He's not going to put the game on his back and make the game-winning touchdown. It's just outside of maybe Pittman, none of their receivers really scare me.
I mean, you've got an aging Ty, but I mean,
aging.
He's
I like Ty, but he's not what he was. And look, if Pittman takes the next step, then good for him. But like, I don't know.
I don't know. But
they're going to win the division. They're my pick to win the division. You know.
I mean,
yeah, they are a pick to win the division. But Mark,
So how far do you guys? It seems like you guys are on the same page. How far do you guys, each of you, see the Colts going in the playoffs? Like, where do you realistically see them going? As let's say
I think they'll get by the first round. I think
their ceiling is a second round exit.
Yeah, well, I don't see them exiting in the first. I think they're good enough to beat whoever they face in the first. I would, if the Colts face New England, I don't like our odds. Like I wouldn't at all. But if they get someone like the Bills, I mean, of course, I think Buffalo would absolutely shred them. But
yeah,
I think it would depend on who they get. But I think they would potentially upset a team like. I think the Raiders are going to have a great year, or maybe even someone like the Chiefs. I think the Colts are good enough to potentially contend with those types of teams in the playoffs. So I can see them making a run. At least second round. Maybe just after that. I don't see them making the Super Bowl, but I think they'll make a run.
Look,
I mean, perhaps my prediction for them is, my ceiling for them is a second round exit.
Look, I might have them a little higher than that. I'm not saying that they're going to do this, but this is my ceiling. Perhaps an AFC championship. They have talent everywhere on the field.
I could see it.
Yeah, but their team is in a sorry.
And look, their offensive line is very good. It's been good the past couple of years. They have a great running game. And it's not only great, it's not just Jonathan Taylor. It's very deep as well. They have pieces everywhere over there. Their defense is really good, and they have a great wide receiver in. I wouldn't say great, but very, very, very good wide receiver in Michael Pittman, and they have everything they need to do it. They just need to do it.
Stay consistent.
Stay consistent. Yeah. And that was their issue last season. They started off 1-4, which was probably falling victim to a couple of their players getting hurt early in the season. They came back, and actually Carson Wentz was supposed to miss a lot of time, and he didn't. And I give him credit for that because that guy's never able to stay healthy. True. But early on in that season, 1-4 start. Then they figured things out, and for a stretch, they went 8-2. And then they couldn't close out the season. But without that 1-4 start, they're a playoff team. So they did that with Carson Wentz.
Didn't Wentz injure both of his ankles in the same game?
And he still didn't miss any time.
Yeah,
that's insane. I don't know how he did that. Like ever since that ACL tear in Philadelphia, his career just hasn't taken off the way they were hoping.
Yeah, look, for athletes, ACL tears are like a death sentence for some of them.
They can be.
It all depends on how it heals.
Recover.
Achilles tears, yes, but I don't know about.
No, but especially if you're doing like a lot of running, but the thing is, like ACLs and stuff, and literally they can come back, but it all depends on like how it heals.
Yeah, it does definitely. But I know this guy never ran to begin with, but like Tom Brady tore his in 2008, and came back and won 3 more Super Bowls, and is still playing at the age of 44, almost 45. So some guys, I think it all depends on how you rehab it and how you heal, and to make sure you don't come back too early or any of that. Brady obviously missed the entire season, but it can be a death sentence for some players because some guys don't recover. Wentz is a great example. But I think for the majority of athletes, that rehabbing in the modern era is good enough to, for certain guys to get over that type of hurdle, even though it is usually 8-month to a year injury.
Yeah, I mean, but for a quarterback, it should be fine. But if you're like a DB or a wide receiver, that could derail you. I mean, look at Odell.
Greater adjustment, but if it happened to someone like Lamar Jackson, I mean, that would be.
Oh yeah, that would.
We'd see how he transitioned from that. But anyways, back to the AFC South.
All right. Well, I believe we've just about covered all of it in the league. But do you guys want to hit on anything else in this division before we move on to the next segment?
I mean, I guess I can touch a little bit upon the Texans.
Yeah, we haven't.
I didn't really follow the draft too closely, so I don't know a ton about the draft. But I think the Texans' biggest move this season, other than Deshaun Watson, because obviously that takes the cake, but they kept Brandon Cooks. So
that was big.
If he left, they would have easily finished last. There's no way that they would have gone anywhere this year with Mills at quarterback, because Cooks, frankly, made Mills look good at times last season. I think if they let him walk, I mean, they easily fourth place. But I think with Cooks, I think they became a touch more competitive, because obviously there were games last year that he probably single-handedly won for them. So I think them keeping Brandon Cooks was a huge move. I think it was a 2-year deal, if I remember correctly. So I think Houston still gets. I do think Trevor Lawrence is good enough to take a step forward, and the fact that he has an actual coach now. I think Jacksonville will still beat them for third, but I think Cooks will at least make Houston. Obviously they'll probably still be a pushover, but I still think they'll nick a couple games this year.
I think that one also has me scratching my head because Brandon Cooks is getting to an age where he's getting up there. He's not going to be playing like this forever. And it's actually amazed me that he's been able to last this long, especially with all the changes and systems and the injuries he's sustained. I thought his career was going to be over with the Rams when he started getting all those concussions. But this isn't a team that's looking to contend in the next year or so. This is going to be a team that's, they're a couple of years off. And I don't think Brandon Cooks is going to help with that. And I just want to know the specifics to his contract. Maybe they could build up some value for him so that at the trade deadline, if a team's looking for a wide receiver one, they could go out and get him. I also understand that Brandon Cooks does like it there, and Houston loves him. But I don't know. Like, I understand, but this is also a business, and you are looking to win and do what's in the best interest of your team. And regardless of your feelings, towards each other, it might not be the best idea for them to hold on to Brandon Cooks for so long.
Yeah, I just looked up his deal. He's basically on 2 years, $20 million. 36 of the 40 is guaranteed. So he's on a pretty hefty deal.
2 years, how much?
2 years, like 40 mil, basically.
40
it's like
mil.
Just under 40. And 36 of that's guaranteed. So they gave him a pretty nice.
Thanks, Christian Kirk.
Nice deal on his. I like Kirk as a deep threat, but that's about it. Yeah, he's not a. I don't know how well he'll deal with Lawrence, but so Cook's on a pretty nice deal. Honestly, they may use him as trade bait, especially maybe not this year, but next year. I mean, they definitely have some picks to build their team. I think them keeping him will make them a touch more competitive in the meantime, but we'll see long term how that affects them.
Yeah, sure. It'll be something to look at going into next season. That's the only part about them that has me scratching their head. Great job with them being able to trade Deshaun Watson and max his value. I wasn't sure if they were actually going to get that much for him. I thought he was borderline untradeable, and now
I did too.
Yeah, but the Browns were desperate.
Now here we are. The Browns they might have a bit of a quarterback crisis.
Who was their Who was their backup last year? Was it
It was Keenum, but he's gone now. I think.
was it
Yeah.
Case?
I think
It was
after
Case Keenum.
yeah, after Watson
They're-
and Mayfield, I think now they have Jacoby Brissett and
Brissett.
Josh Dobbs.
So
yeah,
it's going to be
Jacoby
interesting.
Brissett might well be the starter of Cleveland this year.
That's going to be
he's not terrible.
Yikes.
He's not bad, but
Yeah, but he's
from
just
what it could have been, it's like,
he's a backup.
I think Baker Mayfield gets more hate than he deserves, frankly. I think last year, if he was fully fit, he would have been much better. The fact that he was dealing with that arm injury and his leg, there's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah. All right. Look, we got to move on. So next, Graysen is going to get into his guest segment where he's going to talk about the UEFA Nations League with his favorite team is England, correct?
Well, England's a team. My favorite European teams are usually actually either Belgium or the Netherlands. But yeah, England recently had a game against Hungary in the Nations League. Now, the Nations League, it's a recent tournament for any viewers who might not be familiar. Basically, the first segment of the Nations League was, I believe, held in 2019. And the winners of that were Portugal, another team who I do like. I'm a big Cristiano Ronaldo guy. So, but basically, it was a way for Europe to replace friendlies in a way. So they made the Nations League, and England recently went to. They didn't go anywhere. They faced Hungary in England. Now, this game was a little controversial to begin with because England actually weren't allowed any fans.
I hate to cut you off. We just go on to we transitioned in the next segment. So we'll I put on the intro again just to give the audience a small sort of intermission, if you will.
Sure.
In that, so I just play the intro again, and then I'll introduce the next segment. I'll let you take it away. All right.
Sure.
All right. So next, Graysen's going to talk his UEFA Nations League, and he's going to talk about the North American city potentially being the next host of the FIFA World Cup in 2026. So we'll get to that next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast. Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright, CJ Medieros with special guest Graysen Mortimer. So we have reached our guest segment where Graysen is going to talk about the UEFA Nations League. So what do you got?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the Nations League was basically started in, I want to say 2019, maybe been just before that. And it's basically to replace friendlies in soccer, which are basically just games that two international teams play just to kind of get some experience, warm up, maybe play the youngsters. So the UEFA, which is the European governing body of the game, recently put in the Nations League to kind of replace those. And one game that particularly comes to mind in the past week was England against Hungary. Now, for those who don't know, England is one of the largest footballing nations in the world. I believe in the FIFA World Rankings, they're ranked about 5th right now. And they have a pretty immensely talented squad. So recently Hungary came to visit them. They're in the same group along with Italy and Germany. And now this game was a little controversial just because England actually wasn't allowed to have any fans for this match due to the fact that I believe it was something to do with an illegal chant, but basically they weren't allowed to have any fans except for basically like 10,000 children. So that was a big starter, but then Hungary came in and absolutely ravaged England 4-0. So this was England's worst home loss since I believe the year was 1928. To put that into perspective, that's 94 years ago. So it was their basically worst home loss in 94 years for a country that, basically prides itself on being the founder of the game. So England losing this game was absolutely massive. Hungary used to be a very good footballing nation. They have made a World Cup final in the past. Back when arguably one of the greatest players to ever play the game was on their team. And for mostly NFL viewers, there was a player back in the 50s. His name was Ferenc Puskás. And he was one of the main innovators of, European football and global football that made the game the way it is today. And there is actually an award named after him, which is the greatest goal of the year award, basically, around the world. But to go back to England, pretty embarrassing loss, and one that they will not live down for a while. And it's kind of, been a question of, should they fire their manager? Should they keep him for the World Cup in, November? So it's something that'll ask a lot of questions about, England as a footballing nation going forward, and if their players are talented enough, or if the coaching is the big problem. And to slide into another big announcement in the footballing world, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are hosting the 2026 World Cup, and the host cities have been announced, one of which is Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, which is a huge announcement, as well as for CJ, Philadelphia is another host city.
Hey, dude, I'm not a Philly fan. I'm a Pats fan. I just live near.
Well, you live near there. So, yeah. So the Patriots Stadium is hosting a few games, as well as Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, among many others, including MetLife and Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. But it's a huge announcement because if I'm here in 2026, I am absolutely going to go to one of those games. I don't care who's playing. I just want to say I've been to a World Cup match. I've been to a lot of other games. I actually just spent 4 months in Europe. I saw games from the Champions League, Premier League. Premier League's the English league. Bundesliga, which is the German league. Serie A, which is the Italian league. And I did see a game in France as well. So, with all of the games I've been to, I really was very excited by this announcement, the fact that the World Cup is coming to Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. in 2026. So it's an absolutely huge announcement which happened today. And that's the footballing world in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Nice. Look, so I am actually pretty excited that of the possibility that that the FIFA World Cup could be hosted in a city in the U.S. And what I will say is, so the U.S. is very different from the rest of the world in regards to soccer, because it's just not as popular as it is in the rest of the world. Soccer is regarded as, the most popular sport in like everywhere except the US. Except the US. So I think that would be huge for the US to sort of bring that in, get some fans interested. It turns into a big event, and I think that would be great for them. It would get the US to catch up with everyone else with soccer.
And one of the events that did help like an American golden generation per se was actually the 1994 World Cup, which was also held in the US. And I think the fact that what makes this one a little different is that there's actually 3 host countries. So it works wonders for the US. It works wonders for Canada, which is also entering their golden generation. For those who don't know, I am from Canada, so I do root for them nationally. So I'm very big on them right now as well. And the fact that Mexico, who has also hosted a World Cup in the past, is also involved too. It's definitely a great stride for 2 nations that are, kind of getting a foothold in the game, which are the US and Canada in the game, and a team that, like, the culture is already there, which is Mexico. So I think, the 2026 World Cup is absolutely, to your point, Adam, going to be a big boost for younger fans and for fans that might not know entirely what's happening. to really kind of get a foothold and become, a bigger fan of the beautiful game.
Yeah, and look, it's not like soccer is like an unknown an unknown sport to the US, because
Mhm.
it is played a lot in high schools and colleges, and
Yeah.
I mean most people.
Mhm.
I mean those town where I grew up in, it's everybody. Most people at one point played soccer at one point or another. I played soccer until like second grade, and it was a weird town where it was like it was you were in the minority if you didn't play soccer at one point in your life. And my sister's still playing it. One of them used to play it. So it's definitely it's something that does have potential and people know what it is. So if that were to be introduced, I think that would be huge.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I grew up playing it too. I think we played Sutton a few times. Usually didn't go well for us, but and our high school teams always played as well. So it's huge around this area in terms of playing. Definitely the viewership is definitely on the rise, but I think there's still a long way to go for sure.
Yeah, I mean Sutton's tough when it comes to soccer. My hometown, Sutton's very competitive.
You guys beat
that's our
us.
main sport.
well,
Every
that's
other
weird.
sport we're just okay.
Like, no, like in
Baseball,
my
we're
hometown.
solid, but what's that?
I was just saying, my hometown, no one here gives a flying what about soccer. I mean, it's just the culture, I guess. I mean, my high school has a soccer team, but like no one goes to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's my point. Like it's a sport that gets played. It's almost like lacrosse. Where
I don't know many people that follow professional lacrosse leagues. Sorry, Chris.
Wait,
lacrosse isn't big and isn't really that big in everywhere else, but like it's a sport. My point is, like, it's a sport that is not very popular in the US that everybody plays. There's a lacrosse team on like every high school. So
yeah, definitely. Nipmuc's lacrosse team was always really good. Both men's and women's lacrosse.
I went to two high schools. One of them had a lacrosse team. The other didn't. It was my Sutton High School did not have a lacrosse team, and I don't think they ever will. They could, but I also went to a vocational school. That was a bigger school, so they were able to do all types of sports, men's and women's lacrosse team. But yeah, so Jeff Medeiros commented, "What that is why it is being hosted here, trying to increase viewership and interest."
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I think it will. I absolutely think it will. I think that, and the nice thing about the U.S. hosting the World Cup with Canada and Mexico is that it's in places that there is an established foothold here. But it's also a nice change between, the fact that the last two, Russia in 2018 and then Qatar in 2022, they're both nations that there's somewhat of a culture there, but it's really, it just kind of proved that money had all the power really there. The US, obviously there's money there too, but it's a nice change. The fact that it's a nation that, will get behind it, and also, is in a nice, like a place where there isn't nearly as much controversy.
Because one of us isn't at war with Ukraine. That's nice.
Yeah,
certainly. All right. Well, we do have to wrap things up, but do you have any other thoughts before we end the show tonight?
That's really all I got for my segment.
No, I do not know jack about soccer, but it was nice hearing Graysen explain it.
Yeah, if you ever have any questions, man, shoot them over my way.
Careful, they're very stupid though. I literally asked you how it started, but but that was for
it's all right. It's all right. It happens. It happens.
I do have one more question.
Go for it.
So I asked you off air, but so Jair Alexander. So you responded to our fan box question. Thank you for the response. We loved getting your pick. But Jair Alexander as an underrated corner.
Yeah.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So obviously, when he plays, he is arguably the best corner in the league. He's probably in the last couple of years in conversation with someone like J.C. Jackson, or even a couple of years ago with Gilmore. But the thing is Jair has missed a lot of time in the past definitely the past couple of years. So I think that's kind of taken him out of the conversation, for that number one cornerback in the league. So I think because of those injuries, I think that it's opened up the door for other types of guys like J.C. Jackson to, kind of be in that conversation. So because of that, I think that Jair is obviously still elite when he plays, but I think he's moved into the underrated category just because of how little he's played and how much of an impact he still has, despite the fact he has taken a few knocks in the last couple of years. So I think that because of the fact he's hasn't been able to string together a complete season in a little bit, I think that moves him into underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could certainly see that for being a reason for him to be underrated. Just because he was injured for most of last season, and that would really be, and that was kind of the reason why CJ had him in our rankings number 3. I had him number 2 because I was thinking and that is underrated for me because last off season I had him going into the season. I had him number 1, and obviously can't be number 1 if you are not on the field.
Who'd you have it? I'm just curious. Who'd you have at number 1?
We both had Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, all 3 of us did.
I can see that. Yeah.
Who's your number 1?
Him or JC would be probably.
Oh, Adam.
Ramsey.
Careful.
Ramsey, I can see. I can see Ramsey. Yeah.
Careful, that's Adam's least favorite player there. He wakes up and he's like, "Oh, I don't like J.C. Jackson."
I'd be like, I wonder what that...
I mean, JC
he
had star numbers last year. He really did. I mean,
Stephon Diggs
for me, he's definitely in that conversation. I don't.
Yeah.
Prime Gilmore was definitely still better. But I think, JC last year was pretty good. Him or Jalen Ramsey for me. Jalen Ramsey, I can see that as well.
Look, he had a great year. He had a great year, and I'm gonna go on to he had a great year. Just you look at his coverage statistics, and that's where I say I'm not saying he's a bad corner. I'm not in it for the JC Jackson slander. But I
think he's worth what the Chargers paid him.
You think he's worth it? Okay. Well,
I disagree. I feel that was a little too much.
Maybe a tad overpriced, but it was close to what with the other guys in that defense. I think he'll look like a standout.
Yeah, I understand
the fact that he's got 2 elite edge rushers in front of him. Yeah. There's going to be forced decisions. JC's going to have a good year.
He's going to produce. I just don't think he's worth the money. He deserves being paid, just not that much. And look,
that's fair.
I've never seen him lock down a star though. We all know Stephon
Diggs
get burned brutalizes him every year. Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
He's never shut down Stephon Diggs. Yeah, so but now he's gonna have to face Devontae Adams twice a year, or maybe Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton.
He doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore though, so that's a benefit to him.
We're still Patrick Mahomes.
Take out Tyreek, throw in Devontae, but Diggs absolutely burned him a couple of years ago, though. That game at Gillette where Diggs had, I think, 3 touchdowns. There's but yeah, actually, my final thought will be why I'm half Bills fan. Since
please elaborate on that.
Because I feel like a lot of New England fans. 2
division rivals. I don't know.
This guy likes the Patriots, but he's roots for a division. My dad grew up a Bills fan because I'm originally from Ontario, so the Bills were actually the closest team to where my dad grew up. And if I still lived there, I probably would have only been a Bills fan. But after my dad watched them lose, 4 Super Bowls in a row in the 90s, a couple against the Cowboys as well.
Switch teams.
My dad was like, okay, screw this. Then we moved here in 2002, and that's perfect timing for New England. The fact that since then we've won, well, if you count 02, 6 Super Bowls. So I grew up both kind of Patriots, but then in the last couple of years, the fact that my dad's kind of realigned himself with the Bills, I was like, okay, well, who do I kind of pick? So I just kind of go for Patriots first, Bills second. Granted, Josh Allen is my favorite player in the league.
That's not bad. Yeah, I mean,
That's fair.
like there
I
could
have
be a
one
team that
jersey
you
as Josh Allen.
like. The Patriots will be like your number one, but like the Bills are like a team that you have respect for. You like you know
Absolutely.
your dad rooted for him growing up. Granted, he
Yeah.
probably made him rip his hair out, but
Oh yeah, no, he did not like himself after that fourth loss. He was not happy. He was
Can't
not
say I
happy at
blame
all.
him, really.
No, I can't either. Honestly, I couldn't imagine going through that. I mean, I
Nice.
guess actually part of me can because I've grown up a New England Revolution fan. I missed a lot of their losses, but basically the New England Revolution is the local soccer team here. I do have my desk is a little messy, so I do have a ball. These guys have lost 5 MLS Cup finals and haven't won it. So it's basically the closest thing to the NFL, to the Buffalo or the Minnesota of, MLS.
they had a great season last year too.
They did. That was their year. That was their year. If they didn't win it last year, we still have good players, but that was our year. We've lost our starting goalkeeper, starting striker, starting star wing, all in the last 6 months.
Not from like a Super Bowl standpoint, but in a way that kind of sounds like the Packers. They're always, at least for the Revolution, they're always, think about Green Bay. 4 straight NFC Championship appearances, go 0-4. Like they're always so close, but so far. Rodgers will notch his MVP, and their defense will be solid, but inevitably they're going to run into somebody that just beats them.
For the NFC Championship, I mean, there's definitely a comparison there, but Green Bay has won the Super Bowl, so like that's where it's a little different.
But they're definitely never done it again. They've been close, but
they're definitely more like I would say more like a Minnesota because they didn't lose all 4 in a row.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
But they've been spaced out losses where they've made the final, X number of years and nothing. So that was that's in a way I kind of understand Buffalo's pain for the year, but I think. I hope that if the Pats don't do anything this year, I do hope the Bills win the Super Bowl, not only for their fans who deserve it a ton, but also just because of how talented that team is.
I never want to see a Bills fan happy, no offense. Because they say, they're the best fan base in the – I mean, with all due respect, they're like, this is the best fan base in the league. And I'm like, no, I disagree strongly. Have you ever spoken to one? They're loud, drunken, obnoxious,
they're crazy.
And rude.
They're crazy. I will admit that they're crazy, but they've also pulled off some funny stuff.
Yeah, the table is funny, but yeah.
I mean, if you've ever – like I've shown Adam their social media posts before. They've got an absolutely like goated social media team.
It is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, they've made some quality content on that. I think my favorite one was never ask a man his salary, a woman her age, or the Bills social media team to sign draft or like basically play certain players. We have no authority to do that. We just make memes.
Fair enough. All right.
It's great. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is easily top 5 QB. And I really hope that I think if they beat the Chiefs, because that's been their problem the last few years, I think they'll make the Super Bowl.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Plus, they just signed Jamison Crowder, so their wide receiver core is even more loaded.
All right, look, we could sit here and talk the Bills, Patriots, Revolution all day, but we do have to conclude things. But Graysen, thank you for joining the show. Really, this was great. It was great getting your insight on football and the other football at the one that's played in Europe. But yeah. So that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. Be sure to tune in to us live Tuesdays and Thursdays on Twitter and Facebook through Fans Only Sports Network. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.